In this video, we're going to be going over the mechanics of being a healer, as well as some pretty decent healer builds as well. Hope you enjoy. Right, so healer builds. Little tidbit, healer builds are actually my favourite type of build in this game. They're actually something I put a lot of time and effort into, and I have to date 17 random different FI builds that I've personally have, and this is basically a collection of the ones that I particularly really enjoy, have tested and come up pretty damn well depending on the situation and just overall how it worked. Now, the background footage, I am playing with randoms, trying to do last week's legendary capital building, and I thought, you know what, I'll be a healer for it, and recorded it, and ta-da. And for this, you might notice, and it was actually questioned for me at the end, why am I running technician on a healer build? Doesn't survivalist give more? This is where we get into the mechanics. So, a huge shout out to my clanmate and good friend Kaiser Soze. You can find him over on Twitch. There is a link in the description below. He is a really lovely guy. He's like everyone's granddad. We all love him. And it's really funny when he gets angry at the game. So, why technician? Well, this is the healer build that I'm running for this video. And as you can see here, it says ally repair 1.2 million and then repair over time 244,000. Here is my sexy guinea pig. If I just damage myself and then run for the hills really quickly, all I've got to do here is if I heal myself, you'll see that I'm not exactly getting 1.2 million, I'm getting the 244,000 per second. Kaiser over here, first one doesn't take because it only applies on the when you essentially have no other chem in place. So if I have no other chem in place, so if I chem him now, he will get the 1.2 million as the first tick. There you can see 1.2 mil of healing straight on him. But as you could also potentially see, hopefully we can see it more if we zoom in and slow it down, because he's got some armor regen. You can see that the armor regen is still ticking, so we didn't completely heal him. He got 1.2 mil, but we didn't completely heal him. This is where FI comes in, because if I get close, you see that little green line between us, it gives it another 60% boost, whether you're damaged or not. That completely healed him. There was no armor regen, there was nothing else going on. He just went straight from no armor to full armor. And to demonstrate again as well, he's going to damage himself, I'm going to damage myself, and we're just going to try again. This time it's going to drop the chem on the floor. Boom. Look at that. Straight away, full armor. Now, the reason this is important with technician is simply just because with survivalist you get 15% outgoing healing. This does not affect you in any way, and all healing is calculated from base. Here we have the restorer chem where it says health, that should be ally healing, which is the larger number, and then healing 59k, ally healing 794k. It's obviously quite a bit larger. When it comes to the survivalist outgoing heals, it only really applies to the allied healing, because the healing part you don't really have to worry too much about, because that's more what you would be going for. So the outgoing healing is not going to affect you, along with the fact that if you're going to play a healer, I would argue correctly, you don't really want to be hanging around at full health for too long. Your highest healing stat is then sharing it with the FI buff, which means essentially survivalist only gives you 15%, but technician will now give you 20%, because you're going to get the 10% for your healing, 10% for you healing the ally, and then it's shared by 60% for the FI team buff. So in the long run, technician does actually just give you more healing than survivalist. Adding in the fact that using technician, it gives us the Faraday perk on the hive, which is very useful. Then comes into the simple fact of we get to change a core, whether you want a blue core to help you stay alive a bit more, or a red core to potentially do more damage. It is mostly up to you. I personally go with blue cores because I tend to use my healers most of the time in raids, and we do Faraday strats of where the blue core is going to be more of use than the red core. One of the few examples where blue is pretty damn handy. We then have to go over the backpack talent. I know some people like to argue this and there's a lot of contention about it, but I promise you, opportunistic 100% of the time, simply just because, well, you've seen that ally repair stat. Like, you don't need any more healing, and even if you are at full armor, you don't need healing anyway, so your team isn't actually getting benefit from it anyway, because you're already doing like 1.2 million heal, and if you're playing healer right, it doesn't actually matter whether you have a 100% increase, because it's not really going to count for anything in regards to what FI is actually even capable of. And secondly, you're already buffing damage using future initiative. You might as well put more out there by adding in something like opportunistic and Scorpio, and just to help your team counteract the fact that they are essentially losing a player's worth of damage. So safeguard, not really that useful, and at the times where you really do need that boosting healing, FI will give you more than safeguard actually does, because it's essentially a shared multiplicative. It's 60% of your final product, which kind of looks like this. So the FI share on our original heal on an ally is 1.2 mil. With the FI share, that gives us a bonus 733,000. With safeguard, our base heal is 59,762. With safeguard, we get 119,524. FI literally does 613% more than safeguard can. You don't need safeguard. Anyway, let's have a look at some builds. First one is the one I'm running in the background footage, 4-piece future initiative, BTSU gloves, and the setup for perfect opportunistic. The reason we want the setup is, one, it actually allows us to look after ourselves. The total buff, adding in the full stack of Scorpio, is 72.5%. We near enough have like a full red build going on while also healing. This will also apply to your allies, giving them a 72.5% increase in their damage. 25 from FI, 15 from opportunistic, and then 20 from Scorpio. 1.25 times 1.2 times 1.15 equals 1.725, 72.5% increase. This gives us a huge amount of healing, some good damage, so we're able to look after ourselves. One of the biggest gripes I have about running a healer previous to perfect opportunistic is whenever shit hit the fan, I'd have to be on the comms and be like, guys, I need help, I've got a red, just a red chasing me. Now, not so much. There are even several times in this mission where I am able, takes a minute, but I am able to look after myself, and I even take out elites because of perfect opportunistic. And for the people going, oh, but what about an Alps backpack? Alps will literally give you another 5,976.2 in your healing, which means your ally repair goes from 1.222 million to 1.228. That's it. You don't need it. Up next, we have the Emphatic Resolve healer. The only difference here is we are replacing the FI chest with an Alps chest with Emphatic Resolve, and we are swapping our setup for an FI backpack. The difference here is this is typically used in a dual healer raid setup, typically around headhunters, so you don't really come across this build all too often. The backpack talent takes our shared heal from 60% to 120, and the chest talent Emphatic Resolve gives us another 15% total weapon damage. Quick interjection, we all know at this point on Legendary there's normally a disrupt. I have thrown my hive forward outside of the disrupt range, and I was going to sit on it and wait for the disrupt to end, and there we are. I'm immune to disrupt. You can literally see it popping above my head. Anyway, back to the build. Now, without the FI chest, FI will only give a buff to your teammates while at full armor of 15% total weapon damage. With the chest, it's 25. However, the difference here is Emphatic Resolve is actually quite nice with this, is as long as a teammate has been healed, they don't even need to be filled to full, they get 15% as well, meaning that if you heal an ally from any value of armor to full, the combination of FI and Emphatic Resolve will give them a total of 30% total weapon damage. This does also apply to you. In overall team buffs, because we are now missing opportunistic, it does work out less. However, if you rotate your skills correctly as well as the armor balance, you can actually give them still a pretty hefty chunk of 30% total weapon damage, which can be pretty damn nice. Up next, we have the highest potential heals in the game, and this is probably one of the few actual uses I've come across for Ninja Bite Bag. We're using 3-piece future, including the chest, Alps gloves and Murakami knees. You don't have to have them in this place, I just typically do. Main reason being that for me personally, I run the Emperor's Guard knees for the 1% armor regen because I'm sad and lonely. And I typically don't run FI gloves for anything, so I have a glove spot spare, typically running BTSU in place of. However, because we're running the Ninja Bite backpack, which is an exotic, we can't run BTSU gloves, so we do lose our overcharge. This build is really handy for random groups. It's not that good in organised groups of where you can time your overcharge for certain people needing certain skills to be overcharged at certain points. But with randoms, not knowing when people are going to be able to or want their skills overcharged, it's really handy. The dual stat that we get from running Alps and Murakami is absolutely amazing. Alps one piece is 20% repair skill, 20% duration. Duration does affect how long the chems last on the ground. And then Murakami, the one set is 20% skill duration and the two set is 20% repair skill. So we're essentially, just by using one piece each, Alps and Murakami, we're getting 40% more repair skill and 40% more skill duration. This is really good for your chems. Well, the healing is good on your hive, but the duration doesn't really bother the hive anyway. And we're still getting our 4-piece bonus for future initiative, which means we can sort of lay chems around in random places and get quite a bit out of it. Now for the final build, I am joined here with Gold, and I've basically asked him to play as horrifically as possible because this is the Necromancer build. 4-piece hardwired, Alps Summit with Emphatic Resolve and then BTSU gloves, or you can go with Hanayu for 10% skill haste. You don't necessarily have to go BTSU. And the idea behind this build is you get some pretty okay-ish healing, but you're also able to revive people on repeat regardless. It is really handy for new players or particularly tough missions because you can just revive people and heal people. So there he is. I've tried healing him. He's gone down anyway. That's not a problem. I'll just pick him up. Problem solved. Because we've got 7 charges on the revive hive, running hardwired, every time we chem or drop the hive, we basically take 30 seconds off the cooldown. So we're pretty consistent with both the healing as well as the reviving. And it just generally quite works. Now I did get this build from either Luna, Hutchler or Astro. I can't quite remember what one it was, but I know for a fact it was one of those 3. And it was something that was just played around with when Tidal Basin Legendary first came out for the end area. So massive shout out to all of them really, Luna_NA, It's Astro and Hutchler. I will link their information in the description below, whether it be their YouTubes, their Twitch, etc, etc. And of course the maniac himself, I Got No Gold, running around dying on repeat for me to showcase a build. So yeah, the Necromancer build does work really well. I wouldn't really suggest it for something like organised groups, but if you're playing with low level randoms that are clearly new to the game and struggling, Necromancer build really does come in handy. This background footage is me with the Necromancer build. It's a bit of fun. It's something completely different to what a normal healer would be using, and it really does work pretty damn well. Anyway, they are probably the top 4 healer builds that I've come across. They are really handy, and I'm hoping this helps out people wanting to play as a healer, as well as going over some mechanics. Anyway, this video has gone on long enough. I've talked way too much. Have fun, good luck, don't die. It's bad for the health. Oh, gold, you gone down again.